So in order to help get to the next unit, Unit 4, I wanted to set us up a little bit by looking at quarterly sales data. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a data set that contains the sales. It'll contain probably the year and also the quarter, and then the actual sales volume. It could be in units of things that we sold, or dollars, or millions of dollars, or whatever. And so this data set that we're going to look at has 5 years of quarterly sales data. So 5 times 4, we should have 20 data points. So the question becomes, what do we do first? And then what do we do second? So really, phase 0, we should download the data. Then first, we should look at the data or explore the data, which I suggest plotting, like we learned back in Unit 2. And then if we think there's some kind of pattern to the data, then we want to perhaps determine if there are seasons, meaning each quarter is its own unique kind of thing that we'd like to be able to forecast for demand or sales. If so, then we would want to create some dummy variables and use that to help us make predictions about quarterly sales data. We won't do the actual prediction right now. What we'll do is just create the dummy variables. So if we go back to Blackboard, under Materials, Unit 3, if we go all the way down to Quarterly Data, you can't see that. Go all the way down to Quarterly Data. And then once we get that, then we can open it. And then make this bigger for us. All right, maybe one less. So we have the year, the quarter, the sales, and we have 20 rows of data. All right, 5 years, 4 quarters each. So again, what we would want to do is create a scatter plot. And here I'm not going to pick an X. By default, it'll just use the row number, which is exactly what I want to do for a time series, which is what we'll look at next time. So we'll do insert scatter. And actually, because it's a time series, we can actually use a line plot. So I'm going to create a line plot. And I'm going to get rid of some of these grid lines. And let's zoom in. What's the lowest point here? 80. So let's zoom in to 75 maybe. That might over exaggerate it some, but what we can do is we can say, okay, quarter 1, then quarter 2 seems high, 3 and 4 are low, 1's okay, 2's high, 3's lower, 4's lowest out of those. 1, 2, 3, 4 is the lowest, 1, 2 is the highest, 4 is the lowest, 2 is the highest, 4 is the lowest. So it looks to me like quarter 4 is the lowest, quarter 2 is the highest, 1 and 3 are somewhere in the middle there. And it does look like there is some kind of regularity to this that we could think of as seasonality, regular patterns up and down. So because of that, I would like to create dummy variables, one for each quarter. However, remember, for categorical variables, we need k minus 1 dummy variables to represent k different categories, using k for phonetics. So choosing which quarter is your base is somewhat of a personal preference. I'm going to choose quarter 4. There are 2 reasons I'm doing that. The first is it appears, and the most important one, is it appears that the 4th quarter is always the lowest in sales volume. So that means when I run a regression using the dummy variables, the coefficients for quarter 1, quarter 2, and quarter 3, I would expect to be all positive, because quarter 4 is my base. Everything's in relation to it, right? The other reason I'm doing it is because it's the last out of the seasons, and I like the pattern that it makes when I create the dummy variables over here. So I'm going to call this quarter 1, quarter 2, and quarter 3. And then again, I can use an if statement to test whether this quarter equals 1. If it does, return a 1, otherwise 0. If the quarter equals 2, return a 1, otherwise return a 0. So we're doing our binary dummy variables. Equals if b2 is equal to 3, return a 1, otherwise 0. And I can copy that all the way down, and I'm going to go ahead and center that just for fun. So we see this diagonal pattern and then a row of zeros, a diagonal pattern of ones going down and zeros. Remember, all zeros means that it's not in quarter 1, it's not in quarter 2, it's not in quarter 3, therefore it must be in quarter 4. All right, so we have taken sales data that is quarterly for 5 years, 20 data points. We did a line plot, which you can do with time series because the X's are ordered in some meaningful fashion. And then we created dummy variables, quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3. So then what we could do is we could do a prediction trying to determine if these quarters would help us predict quarterly sales. So I'm not going to do that right now. I think we'll do that in Unit 4, so I'm not going to look at that right now. But this shows you once again how to create dummy variables for multiple categories. We use k-1 dummy variables for k categories.